Thanks for tuning in, gang. We are going to be looking at today this DJI Power 1000 power station. This thing has me scratching my head left and right because I don't know what to think about it. And we're gonna kind of go over why I come to that conclusion. But basically it's a 2200 watt pure sine inverter with a 1048 watt hour lithium iron phosphate battery in it. So I would consider this a medium sized power station. Typically 1000 watt hours will get you through a night, maybe 2 nights worth of camping. So it fits that niche pretty well. It's got a few quirks up its sleeve though, and I want to kind of go over that with you folks. But I will say right now, of course, like with every other company, in November, they are having huge sales on this particular power station. You can get this for less than 500 bucks right now on Amazon. So whether you want to like it or not, I will say DJI makes really, really nice products. I've got 3 or 4 of their drones. They're excellent, excellent drones, the best you can get. I think they have a little work to do on their power stations. What leaves me scratching my head on this thing is the fact that you have to buy dongles. I think in 2024, we are done with having to use dongles. And what I mean by dongles is, if you take a look up here, try to get this up a little bit closer. You've got all your basic stuff on this power station. You've got your 2 120 volt, 2200 watt AC outputs. You got 2 USB A's. You've got 2 of the new 140 watt USB Type C's. You've got your AC charger right up front. You do have a toggle switch that can go from 600 watts to 1200 watt fast charge. I do like that it's just a simple button. You don't have to do an app, you don't have to do anything. You can fast charge or slow charge directly from the top of this unit. These are the kickers, guys. These are what they're calling SDC ports. They essentially look like almost like an XT90 or XT150 port, but these are kind of proprietary to DJI. And these are put on this power station to, I believe, market it toward fast charging all of their drones. So yes, you do have to buy a dongle to whatever drone you have to fast charge it. I don't understand why. Maybe I'm just not privy enough to the drone charging, but when I use the Type-C charging cord, it charges my drone up just fast enough for me. I'm guessing if you hook up the battery from the drone directly to this SDC port, it would charge it up even faster. But I don't have a dongle to test that. But since the only 12 volt option on this power station are these SDC ports, you got to buy dongles. If you want to charge this up with your car, you have to buy this little gadget. This is an SDC port right here. It's dangling around to your standard cigarette style input. So you would connect this up to the front, plug this into your car output, and you're going to get 100 to 120 watts worth of juice being put in here. This is about 25 bucks. If you want to run a 12 volt fridge, you have to buy an SDC dongle to a female version of the 12 volt cigarette style plug. So again, you would plug this in here, and then you would plug your 12 volt cooler or anything like a 12 volt blanket, anything that requires that cigarette style plug it in there. 20 bucks for that dongle. Now the kicker is, if you want to charge this thing up with solar, you have to buy an external MPPT. That's what this guy is right here. This will accept up to 400 watts. It's got 3, let me get these open, so you can plug up to 3 solar panels in the front of that. And then of course this gets plugged into the front of the Power 1000. I've never seen a power station that you have to use an external MPPT. I think this is going to be a kicker, a big no for most people having to use this. You can use, if you buy this little setup right here with the cigarette style plug, you can take this out and you can plug in one 100 watt panel via XT60 on the end of this. Plug this in and you want to charge it up via, a 100 watt panel. You don't necessarily have to do the external MPPT. You can buy 2 of these to get up to, I believe, 800 watts if you want to plug 2 MPPTs up to these SDC ports. But honestly, guys, who wants to do that? I don't know. I don't, I'll be honest. But that's what I'm saying, guys. You have to buy a lot of dongles if you want to use a lot of 12 volt stuff and charging with solar. I think that's where DJI kind of missed the mark. But there's a few really good things about this power station that I'm going to go ahead and go over with you folks real quick, because for less than 500 bucks, this might be a great option if you don't need any of the 12 volt stuff. So let's get into charging, because I want to show you how quiet this thing is because it is the most quietest power station that I've ever reviewed here on the station. You can barely, in fact, you can't hardly even hear the fans. And then we'll test it out with a 100-watt solar panel. And then I'll give you kind of a breakdown at the end of this video exactly what I think about this power station. All right, well, I just hooked up the charger. Of course, this thing does not need an external charging brick, just most like any other modern power station these days. But I do have the toggle switch to 1200 watts. Hopefully you can tell I'm only getting 600 watts worth of input. The battery's at 71%, and curious, I'm getting a little temperature warning icon that's flashing down here. It's very, very small. It's probably hard to see, but it's 58 degrees here in this garage. So I'm assuming that these batteries need to get warmed up, I guess, to get that full 1200 watts worth of input. So I'm gonna keep an eye on this to see when that little temperature warning icon goes away and confirm that we can get 1200 watts. All right, well, my temperature warning icon has finally stopped flashing. We're at 74% now, and I am still inputting only 603 watts. So I'm a little bit perplexed as to why I'm not getting that full 1200 watts. If I switch this toggle to 600 watts, you get the 600 watt slow icon, which is normal. I'm inputting 603 watts. We can flip it back to the 1200 watts. And I would think I would be able to see this input go from 600 up to 1200 watts. Well, we're at 78% now, and I'm still only getting 600 watts. I'm not exactly certain why I'm not getting that full 1200 watts. I think with only 78% capacity, these batteries should be able to handle 1200 watts worth of input, but for some reason the BMS is not letting me get that full 1200 watts. But I'm gonna quit talking now, because even at 600 watts, most power stations you can kind of hear. You can kind of hear the fans blowing and venting, keeping everything cool. This power station is dead silent. I'm at 32. Right next to the power station, and you can't hear anything. It is completely silent. But maybe DJI will see this and contact me and let me know why I can't get that full 1200 watts. But let's move on to these SDC ports, because I was hoping that these would work for my diesel heater, and let me show you the results of that. So remember, in order to use any 12 volt appliance, you have to use, in my case, this dongle, which is the SDC to the female cigarette style plug. So we'll get this plugged in, and there's no button to turn on. As soon as you plug in something into these two ports, this light automatically cuts on. But what I want to show you folks that I found interesting is I'm going to plug in my little DC watt meter, or DC capacity tester. And I was hoping that these would be high output DC ports. But hopefully what you can see here is I'm going to get this going to 10 amps, which is a typical output for a cigarette style DC plug. So we're getting 10 amps, I'm pulling 136 watts. I need over 160, 170 watts on some of my diesel heaters. So I was hoping that this setup would give me that option to run some of my diesel heaters, but let me zoom in so you can get this wattage. So I'm gonna slowly, out of camera, start turning this up. And we're now at 145 watts, 150, 160 watts, 62 watts. That is as much as I can get. It completely bonks out after 160 watts. So we can try this again. You can see here, I'm gonna get it up to 10 amps, 10.5 amps, 143 watts. Slowly crank it up. It's running 159, just fine. As soon as it gets over 160 watts, it shuts down. There we go, shuts off. So you're only able to get 160 watts out of this, what I was hoping would be a high output DC port to be able to let me use my diesel heaters, because some of these diesel heaters, guys, require a lot of power at startup to get that glow plug heated up. And unfortunately, this setup will not work on my diesel heater. All right, let's talk about the usable capacity, or what you're getting for your money off of this 1048 watt hour lithium iron phosphate battery. So I use that same DC capacity tester, hooked it up to this thing when it was 100% full, let it run all the way down to empty until the unit shut off, and I got 795 watt hours. That's about 78 maybe 79% efficient, which is not that great, to be honest. Most power stations, kind of industry average, is 85% efficient. I've had some that got 90, some that got 80. Anything below 80, I would not really give a good quality passing score. So I charged it back up to 100%. I hooked up my watt meter and I ran about a 500 watt halogen light bulb off of this thing to test the AC output and the efficiency of this inverter. I was able to get 856 watt hours off of the AC discharge test, which is about between 83 and 84.5% efficient, which is kind of just industry average. It's not great, it's not bad, it's just right in the middle. So overall, really nothing to write home about in terms of how great the efficiency is. It's kind of right in the middle in terms of AC, and really not that great for the DC capacity testing off of this power station. So now I'm going to take this outside, hook up a 100 watt panel to it. I'm going to use both dongles to show you that they both do work if you're just using a 100 watt panel. And if you want to increase that wattage, that's when you have to buy that MPPT that can accept up to 400 watts worth of solar. All right, gang, so I've got the Zignes 100 watt panel. I will say probably out of everything, I'm the most impressed with this solar panel. I guess we're partnering with DJI, but anyway, I got it lined up. It's 38 degrees outside right now, not the best. And I am getting 100 watts input into this Power 1000 just through this connection right here, not the MPPT, just the SDC to XT60 connection. And that's phenomenal right there, 99 watts. This panel is not a big panel. It's rated for 100 watts. If I get my shadow out of the way. So that's really, really good efficiency. That sun is pretty low. It's late November. So to be getting 100 watts off of this is really quite impressive. And we're still getting 100 watts. So let me show you how to use the MPPT. Again, it's just with one 100 watt panel. It's not really what that's made for, but we'll go ahead and hook it up and I'll show you how that goes. All right, so I've got that MPPT connection right here. I've just got the solar panel going directly into this first port, plugged into the SDC, and we're climbing up to, again, almost 100 watts. So really, again, this is only used if you're going to be using more than 100 watts worth of solar, but it's a pretty simple connection. It's just the fact that it's an external MPPT that kind of blows my mind, but this thing's great. Well, let's test out the inverter so you guys can see the performance on that thing. So 1500 watt space heater. I'm going to plug into this guy, and again, 2200 watt rated running on this inverter. So just a note, there is a button down here below these two AC outputs. If you just quickly press and hold once, it'll turn on the AC in eco mode, meaning that if it does not detect any power, it will shut off the AC inverter. If you press and hold it, it takes it out of eco mode and will keep this inverter turned on without any load being detected. But for this case, we'll just quickly press it, get this heater cut on to max, and that's going to pull, we're at 1585, 1700 watts, 1800 watts. While these coils get hot, it's going to trickle down, and we're going to settle down around 1400 watts. This is the first time I've heard the fans cut on, and now the fans have slowed down, but still the quietest fans that I've ever heard on any power station. In fact, they basically have now cut off, but we are comfortably pulling 1500 watts. So let's hook up a heat gun, and that's going to push us up to 2200 watts, 2210 watts. So this is the exact rated capacity of this power station running these two heaters. So no problem there. Let me crank up the heat and see what this thing will handle. There's 2400, 2600 watts, and it dies. So that is actually a good thing. Once it gets up to 2600 watts, it accepted it for around 1 or 2 seconds. It's beeping at me. It's not happy, but the BMS in this thing is protecting the battery cells and actually cutting off the inverter, not letting us push this thing too hard. So the fact that it cut off is good. Let's take this out of the equation, turn the inverter back on, and let's get some voltages off of this. And so I only have two plugs. I can't test the sine wave and the voltage with both appliances running, so we're just gonna have to do it with this space heater. So in terms of voltage, running 1520 watts, we're getting a solid 122 volts, which is really good. As far as sine wave is concerned, we got a perfectly clean sine wave. So this thing does boast a really nice inverter. Not the most efficient inverter, but it's a 2200 watt inverter on top of a 1000 watt hour battery pack. So it's more than double the size of the battery. So those are going to be less efficient. But again, it's nice to have that extra power to run some of your appliances that might take up to 1800 watts on startup, just like this space heater. So this power station does have two of the new 140 watt output USB-A Type-C power delivery ports. So I want to make sure that both of these work at the same time and that they don't override each other. So we're going to go ahead and plug in two of these 140 watt capable little battery packs. And let's see what we're able to get out of that. So right now I'm getting around 100 watts being input into both of these, and I think that's due to the fact that these power bricks that I'm holding here are roughly about 90% charged. So I will say that I do think that both of these are able to output probably up to 140 watts if these were not charged up so fully. And just to confirm, I'm going to unplug one of them and see if that changes. So this is at 85 watts right now, and it is not going up. So I think it's just the limitations of these actual power bricks. But I will say that it does appear that both of these 140 watt outputs do work together with one another, so you can plug up more than one device and get plenty of output. Yeah, so this one's at 95% fully charged, and I'm inputting 81 watts. This one's 90% charged, and I am inputting 82 watts. So it does appear, at least, that both of these power delivery ports can output up to 140 watts at the same time if what you're putting it into can accept that amount. Well, there you go, gang. That's kind of my take on this DJI Power 1000. That's why it kind of leaves me scratching my head, because I don't know if to give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down. And that's just being completely honest with you folks. For being less than 500 bucks, it did really well. The actual usable capacity is a little bit lower than normal at around 80% for DC and 84 to 85% for AC capacity testing, which I would have liked to have seen more. Like it or not, DJI is a solid brand. I think this is a pretty solid power station, but the main kicker for me are these SDC ports. I just wouldn't buy a power station mainly to fast charge drones and other DJI products. I would rather have a dedicated 12 volt output on these things than these little SDC ports. It does the exact same thing as every other power station does, but this is the only one that I've seen that requires you to buy dongles to charge with your car, run a 12 volt refrigerator, charge with solar panels. In fact, I've never seen any other power station that requires you to purchase extra dongles in order to do that. Every single other power station has that built in. So for me, I wouldn't buy this power station. But if you're not concerned about the 12 volt stuff, it's probably a pretty good power station. But just for me personally, telling you folks my opinion, if that matters at all, I probably would not buy this power station simply due to all the dongles that you got to buy. It's just kind of annoying to me, and I wouldn't want to have to keep up with them, and I just don't see why they didn't add those to begin with. That would have made this power station a really good pick, I believe. Who knows, maybe in the V2 of this, they're going to do that. Maybe DJI will see enough of these reviews from the YouTube world kind of complaining about having to carry all those dongles. Again, I just don't get it. There's plenty of room up here where they could have put those ports in and probably kept these SDC ports too for their drones. But folks, I don't know. I just wanted to show this to you, let you know what I think of it. And again, if that matters at all, I don't know. But for me, it would be a pass. For others, it might be the go-to, especially for less than 500 bucks and you have a lot of drones that you want to fast charge. I think this would probably be a good choice. But anyway, gang, I will leave a link for this in the description box below. They are having, of course, everyone's having these huge Black Friday deals, so less than 500 bucks for this on Amazon, it really isn't a bad deal, again, if you don't care about all the dongle stuff. So, gang, thanks for watching, and check the link below if you're interested, and we will see you soon. Take care.